What is up, guys? Randomodium here. So the queen is back. The Diana rework is on the PBE right now. Surrender at 20 is your place for PBE stuff. I'm not like sponsored by them or anything, but they run an amazing website. So if you don't know anything about Surrender at 20, they're kind of the go-to spot to learn about what's going on in the PBE. If you don't have a PBE account, or even if you do, it's a great place to get summarized changes. So a lot of my info is coming from Surrender at 20. I did notice a few things that Surrender at 20 has missed, so I'm going to be including that in my analysis. And I have been seeing a lot of people making videos on the Diana rework, but nobody's really going over the actual changes. Nobody's really breaking down the numbers, really going over whether it's going to be a net positive or a negative for Diana. They're just kind of trying to clickbait and say, you know, it's broken, whatever. I'm going to try and do something that's more realistic and really go through what are the pros and cons of the new Diana rework so we can get a better assessment of where she's going to fit in the meta and how strong she's going to be for potentially for like competitive or things like that. So right off the bat, we got base stats for Diana. Her mana's going up, so it was 372. Now it's going to be 420 for the base mana. Haha, joke, joke. Mana per level goes from 20 to 25. So her mana at level 18 is going to be about 130 more. So it goes from 712 to 845. And her base AD is going up by 4. So right off the bat, straight buffs to her base stats. She has more mana per level, and her base AD is higher. And you might say, well, Diana's an AP champion. Why do I care about her base AD? Base AD really affects jungle clears and also affects last hitting of minions. So this is basically just a net buff. I think it actually really impacts Diana jungle, having some more AD. And then additionally, it's going to make her last hitting under tower a bit easier if you're playing her in mid lane or top lane. All right, so her passive, Moonsilver Blade. So base damage is the same. It's still 20 to 250, which scales off of level. The AP scaling has been cut in half. This is a huge nerf. It goes from 80% to 40%. You're also losing the mana restore. So it used to be that every single time you get your third auto attack, you proc the passive, you restore 15% AP in mana. That's gone now. So basically, she gets more mana, but she loses the mana restore. So it's kind of hard to say whether it's a net buff or a net nerf. I think it's going to be different. It's going to take time to figure out. I didn't really have any problems with mana when I played her in the PBE, but that was just a few games. It's a really small sample size. It's really hard to tell whether or not it's going to be a net buff or a net nerf. Okay, so more buffs is that she now gains 10 to 40% bonus attack speed just flat, and that's based on her level. It goes up by, if I remember correctly, it goes up by 5% at level. So level 1, it's 10%. Then at level 3, it goes up to 15%, and then it goes up by 5% every 3 levels after that. Additionally, when she casts an ability, for her the rework is going to be that she triples that attack speed. So if it's 10%, it triples to 30. If it's 20%, it triples to 60. If it's 40%, it triples to 120% attack speed for 3 seconds on ability cast. So instead of just bursting your abilities, being able to weave your abilities every couple of seconds is going to be a bit more important to gain the most amount of damage you can get. So basically, you're going to have to make a trade-off between whether you want to burst an opponent or whether you want to go more for DPSing your opponent down. So this is a buff. It used to be that she got 30 to 90% attack speed on ability cast based on her E rank, but usually you would max E last on Diana. So you would usually stay at that 30% attack speed until you got really late into the game, like level 13, 14, 15, that type of stuff. So now, her mid game, she gets a lot more attack speed because instead of being at 30% until she hits, like level 13, 14, now she's going to be gaining, it's going to be linear across the entire game. So in the mid game, she's going to have a lot more attack speed. And then at the end game, she now goes up to 120 attack speed instead of 90% attack speed. So overall, it's a buff across the board. She has more attack speed in the mid game. She's going to have more attack speed in the late game. And that's going to make her stronger in the jungle for clearing. It's going to make her stronger taking towers. It's going to make her stronger if she's not able to burst someone with her initial combo. It's going to basically make it so that she can still have more dueling power with the additional attack speed. All right, her Q. Her Q is virtually unchanged. It's the same base damage. It's the same scaling. It's the same percent AP damage. The only thing that's changed is the mana cost. Mana cost has gone down from 55 to 50, so 5 less mana. This does help in laning phase. It means you might get like 1 additional Q off in laning phase, or you can use that mana for another ability. So, but for the most part, Q, it's identical. It's completely transparent. You're probably not going to even notice it that much. For her W, this is huge. Mana cost goes down significantly. It was 15. It's going to increase her mana by 15 every time she took a rank originally. Now it's down to 5. So it only goes up, it's like by a factor of a third. So it goes from 40 to 100. Now it's down to 40 to 60. This makes W max potentially more viable because it used to be that you would always want to go Q max because you get the range harass and the mana cost is pretty low. Now the mana cost on W is also pretty low, damage is still pretty good, and you also get the shield. So I could see situationally where there would be times where you would want to go W max on Diana. And I'll go over, I would think like jungle, you definitely would consider W max on Diana. Lane Diana, you probably would still want to go for Q max unless you were in like a melee matchup potentially. Base shield is going to be nerfed very slightly. Base shield goes down by 10. And remember, Diana's W has 2 parts. So she gains the initial shield, and then if she procs all 3 of the orbs, the shield refreshes. So it's actually 20 base that you're losing on the shield, assuming that you proc both parts of the shield for Diana. AP scaling stays the same. So 30, it's 60 if you proc both halves of the shield. Damage is unchanged as well, and damage scaling is unchanged as well as far as the AP scaling is the same. However, now you're going to gain bonus health scaling. So you now get 10% of your bonus health added to the shield. So you're saying you're losing 10 on the base shield, but you're gaining 10% of bonus health. So the breakpoint for the new Diana's W being better than old Diana's W is 100 bonus health. As long as your build contains at least 100 bonus health, the new Diana W will be better than the old Diana W as far as like shield strength is concerned. You're also going to take a nerf on your base cooldown of the Diana W. It was originally 10, now it's 15. So that's 5 seconds is actually pretty huge for the laning phase and also for the clear if you're going jungle Diana. That additional 5 seconds gives you a much larger window that you can be punished, and it's also going to cause you to lose more health in the jungle. However, you now get cooldown reduction per rank. You get 1.5 seconds shaved off the cooldown every single time you rank up the ability. This is going to make going for a W max better, because basically it used to be that you didn't gain any cooldown by trying to level up the W. You only gained the base shield and the base damage increase. Now you actually get cooldown reduction, and if you actually have it at max rank, the cooldown is actually lower with new Diana as opposed to old Diana. It used to be 10, now it's going to be 9 at max rank. So in order to get the same cooldown with the new Diana shield as old Diana, you need to be at least rank 4 in her W. So these changes, I actually like them because it potentially opens up, like I've been saying, a W max to be viable in certain situations. Additionally, it also makes Bruiser Diana much better because you gain this bonus health scaling. So if you have a lot of bonus health, that shield becomes incredibly powerful. And you also have to remember is that shields also scale off of resistances, because shields are post mitigation damage. So if you have a lot of resistances, a lot of bonus health, this is actually a massive shield. I think people are really sleeping on how powerful this shield is. You could have a shield that's like 400 or 500 health. Every couple, like if you have max CDR, I think it's like 5.6 seconds is the cooldown on Diana's W now, which is absolutely absurd. That shield gives her so much innate tankiness, especially in skirmish situations or even in a full-on team fight situation. So I think people are really sleeping on how powerful these Diana W changes are. I think this is actually a pretty huge buff to Diana, both for jungle and for laning phase. So as we all know, the big change with Diana's rework is that they're swapping her E and her R. So her R used to be her Lunar Rush, which was her gap closer. Now it's on her E, and they've obviously reduced the power of her dash. And then her Moonfall, which used to be her E, is now her R, and they've added a damage component to that ability to make it much more powerful. So, for comparing the old Lunar Rush as opposed to the new Lunar Rush, the mana has been reduced. It used to be 50 to 80, now it's 40 to 60. Base damage is lower. It used to be 100 to 220, but remember you couldn't get it till level 6. Now it's 40 to 120, so about half of what you used to see. And then the AP scaling is down 50%, or sorry, by a factor of half. So it was 60%, now it's 40%, so 20% reduction. So yeah, but it's basically scaled down by a half. And then the cooldown is actually better. So it used to be 25 to 15, now it's 22 to 14. So overall, as we would expect, if you're moving an ability that wasn't ultimate and you're making it a non-ultimate ability, the power is going to go down. So this is to be expected that your Lunar Rush is going to be a lot weaker. The big thing, though, is that Lunar Rush was really essential for Diana to be able to assassinate targets. Because it had the high AP scaling and the high base damage, that double dash was really pivotal for Diana to be able to one-shot enemies. So we're seeing that this actually hurts her ability to one-shot enemies. These changes will make it harder for you to assassinate targets. So it does make AP burst assassin type style playstyles a little bit weaker, and we have to see what's going to be happening with her new ultimate to see whether or not it brings the burst back up. So with her new ultimate, a Moonfall, it used to be that you did no damage, no AP scaling, no additional damage per target hit, none of that stuff. Now you have 200 to 400 base damage on the ability. You have a 60% AP scaling ratio. You deal an additional 35 to 85 damage plus 15% of your ability power per target hit, which means that if you get that money shot, 200 IQ, 5 enemies hit, ultimate, you're going to be doing 740 base damage at max rank plus 120% AP scaling. So this ultimate is ridiculously powerful. The big thing is that you have to consider is that there is a 1 second delay between the pull and the damage actually coming down. So there is a possibility that somebody could Zanya's, or they could flash, or they could use some type of other invulnerability mechanic in order to negate the damage that comes down with the Diana ultimate. So it does make it so that while it is a ton of damage, and I think it's a net buff overall, it does give the ability for counterplay, which I think people who don't play Diana are actually going to really like. Is that it used to be with Diana that you see the Diana and then you're dead. It basically just like, she just instantly just deletes you off the map. Now at least you have the chance to be able to react. You can use Zanya's potentially, or you can flash away. She's not going to be just coming out of the brush and just one-shotting you in less than a second. Obviously, the cooldown is going to be worse. It used to be 26 to 18 seconds. Now it's 100 to 80. That said, it felt pretty good. I felt like I had her ultimate available pretty much anytime I wanted to go for a fight. And they did buff the slow ever so slightly. It used to be 35 to 55% for 2 seconds. Now it's 40 to 60% for 2 seconds. But I really want to focus on is the damage. The damage is huge. So if you compare it to, say, like Orianna or Malphite or Nico, granted, the AoE is definitely a lot less than a Nico ultimate. I would say it's pretty comparable to potentially like an Orianna or a Malphite ultimate. But Orianna, which we know, like Orianna Shockwave is just a huge ability. It's a game-changing ultimate. Her base damage is 200 to 350 with 80% AP scaling, and the cooldown is 110 to 80 seconds. That's really comparable to Diana. See, we're seeing 200 to 400 as opposed to 200 to 350. The 60% AP ratio as opposed to 80, so that's definitely worse. The cooldown is roughly the same, 110 to 80 as opposed to Diana's, which is 100 to 80. But the big thing is that if you hit multiple opponents, you gain that additional damage. So if you land a 2-man ultimate or even a 3-man ultimate, it's potentially more impactful than an Orianna ultimate. And the same can be true for like Malphite. Malphite, 200 to 400 base damage, 80% AP scaling, 130 to 80 second cooldown. Same thing with Nico. Nico, 200 to 650 base damage, 130% AP scaling ratio, 90-second cooldown. But remember, it's a lot harder to hit that Nico ultimate because of the delay. So if you land like a big ultimate with Diana, it's pretty comparable to Nico damage on the ultimate. So yeah, I think people are sleeping on how powerful this new ultimate is. It makes Diana really, really strong in attack compositions. It makes her really, really strong in a wombo style composition. You pair her with a Yasuo or an Orianna or a Misfortune or any other champion that has a big AoE ultimate. You're going to get some pretty crazy combos with this new Diana. And actually, it almost makes it so that landing the Q before you go in is not as important anymore because the damage is down on her Lunar Rush, right? So the damage is down. It's about half the damage it used to be. So landing that Q first so you can get the double Lunar Rush is not as important in those mid-game and those late-game team fights. What's more important is that you're able to engage when everybody's clumped up. So I think you're going to see a lot of Dianas now. They don't look for that Q to gain the double dash. They're instead just going to wait until the enemy clumps up, and then they're going to immediately dash in, ultimate, and then do their Q and their W to try and survive and deal as much AoE damage as possible. If you're talking about her like overall, if we're talking about her overall combo, you can see her level 18 like full combo, which is the passive Q, W, 2 Lunar Rushes, and her Moonfall. You can see that the old Diana had 1100 base damage. Now she's got 1300, so slightly higher base damage. But the AP scaling is slightly worse. It used to be 330% AP scaling. Now it's 310% AP scaling. So as we can see, Diana has gone from being more of a single target assassinating type champion to being more of a wombo team fight centric champion because she has slightly worse AP scaling, slightly higher base damage, better AoE damage potential, which definitely makes her bruiser style of playstyle better overall. I would say that this potentially could be, I'd say her assassin style is about the same, maybe a little bit worse. Her bruiser style is way better. It may even be that her bruiser style may be even better than the assassin playstyle. It's really hard to tell this early into the game. And it really would depend on what actually ships to the live servers. Remember, this is still just PvE. The other big thing that I was looking at was level 3 if she tries to trade. So level 3, I'm assuming that she's got 1 rank in her Q, her W, and her E. Her old level 3 combo was 151 base damage with 2.1, 210 AP scaling. Now her level 3 combo is 231 base damage, so significantly higher, 80 damage higher, and the scaling is also better as well. So this does mean that Diana in laning phase is going to be much stronger because she's going to be able to close distance on ranged targets, which she used to not be able to do until level 6. And her base damage is going to be higher because it used to be that her old E didn't deal any damage. So even though the Lunar Rush is weaker, because you can access it earlier, it means that you have access to more damage earlier in the game, which makes her laning phase stronger. So net overall, I think her laning phase is stronger. I think her mid game, it's kind of a wash. She loses out on some burst damage potential, but she gains a lot more attack speed. So she's going to be less about assassinating targets, more about the DPS she brings to a fight, and also more about the damage she can deal to towers or other neutral objectives. So it's kind of a wash, I would say. I think that most Diana players are going to see it as a mid-game nerf, but Bruiser Diana playstyles are going to see it as a buff. And then late game, I think that it's going to be a net buff for her as well because her team fighting is a lot stronger. It used to be that Diana's team fighting was about just assassinating a target, Zanya's, and then try to wait for cooldowns to assassinate another target. Now it's going to be more about her ultimate, landing those big 3, 4, 5-man ultimates. And I think that a lot of Diana players are probably going to find that rewarding. And I think that people who dislike playing against Diana are also going to find it more rewarding because there is a delay in her damage. It's not going to be instantaneous damage. So there is a 1-second delay on her ultimate, which I'm hoping people will find a little bit more fun to play against. So yeah, overall, I do think this is a net buff to Diana. I think that Diana players are going to enjoy the new Diana more. I think that people are going to enjoy playing against Diana more because she's less about just like single target, point and click, just delete you off the face of the map. I think she's going to be a little bit more skill expressive because it's all about landing that clutch 3, 4, or 5-man ultimate. So overall, I would say this is a great rework. It's still Diana. They're not changing anything drastic. It makes Bruiser Diana way better. Assassin Diana is still viable. She's better in team fighting. She's better in the early game. Mid game, it's kind of a wash. But I do think that this potentially opens up Diana to be viable in professional play as a counter pick in certain situations. I don't think she can play into a lot of matchups at the professional level, but as a counter pick, I think that she will be viable, and we may see her in the professional side of things, assuming that all of these changes actually get shipped to the live servers. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if you like these type of breakdowns on mini reworked, where I actually go over the numbers, I really break down how a champion is better or worse, please let me know. Please leave a comment. Please leave a like. Let me know. I will keep doing these type of videos because I do feel like it's lacking in the YouTube market right now. People don't really go over the nuts and bolts of the changes. They just post a video with a fully stacked Magi's and say, oh, the champion's busted now. Well, any champion is busted with a fully stacked Magi's. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a like. Please leave a comment. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. Hope you guys have a great holiday. This is Randomonium signing off.